A slow, macro shot of a heavy, brass deadbolt sliding into place. Clack! The camera pans out to reveal a sprawling, modern architectural marvel, a luxury villa cast in the cold, blue shadows of a stormy night. Rain beats heavily against floor-to-ceiling glass windows. Red and blue police lights begin to dance across the wet concrete driveway. Think about your home, your sanctuary, the place where you shut out the rest of the world. When you slide that lock, turn that key, and bolt the door from the inside, you assume you are completely safe. You believe that whatever is outside stays outside. But what if the lock isn't there to keep the world out? What if, when you turned that lock, you unknowingly sealed yourself inside with a monster? It is the ultimate paradox of true crime, a locked room mystery. An affluent retired couple, a high-end luxurious villa deadlocked from the inside, no broken windows, no forced entry, no secret passages, and yet, inside, a bloody nightmare. This isn't an Agatha Christie novel. This is a real, chilling, unsolved tragedy that has completely baffled the smartest criminal minds, forensic experts, and local investigators. Today, we are diving deep into the locked room luxury villa mystery. We will lay out the blueprints, dissect the final 12 hours, and walk through the mind-bending theories. Grab a notebook, pay close attention to the details, because by the end of this video, we want to hear your theory. How did they do it? To understand the horror of what happened inside that villa, we first have to meet the victims. They were a highly respected, deeply loved couple, both lifelong schoolteachers. For over 3 decades, they dedicated their lives to educating the youth in their community. They were the kind of teachers who remembered every student's name, who stayed late to help struggling kids, and who quietly donated books to families who couldn't afford them. After a lifetime of hard work, long hours, and careful financial planning, they finally retired. They wanted to build a sanctuary, a place where they could spend their golden years in absolute peace and comfort. So they built it, an opulent, modern, high-end villa. This wasn't just a house, it was a fortress. The couple had spent a significant portion of their savings ensuring the property was equipped with top-of-the-line security. High-end deadbolts, reinforced window frames, and motion sensor lights. It was their pride and joy. And on the night of August 10, everything seemed completely perfect. It was approximately 9:00 p.m. The couple's adult daughter, who lived in a nearby city, called to check in on her parents, as she did almost every single night. The call was completely routine. They talked about the weather, their plans for the upcoming weekend, and what they had cooked for dinner. The mother's voice was warm, relaxed, and completely normal. There was no tension in her tone, no background noise, no indication that anything was wrong. No warning that they were sharing their luxurious sanctuary with a killer. The conversation ended with a simple, routine phrase, "Goodnight, Beta, call us tomorrow." They hung up. It was the last time anyone would ever hear their voices alive. By 9:30 a.m. the next morning, the daughter was starting to panic. Her parents were creatures of habit. They woke up at 6:00 a.m. every single day without fail. They usually called her by 8:00 a.m. But today, both of their phones were ringing out. No answer, no busy signal, just endless, echoing rings. Sensing that something was deeply wrong, she called a close family friend who lived just 5 minutes away from the villa. She asked him to drive over, knock on the door, and check if they were okay. When the friend arrived at the villa, the property was eerily quiet. He knocked once, twice, 3 times. No response. He walked around the perimeter of the house, peering through the large glass windows. The curtains were drawn in some rooms, but in others he could see inside. Everything looked undisturbed. The television was off. The kitchen was clean. There was no sign of a struggle. But then he noticed something. The couple's cars were parked in the driveway. If their cars were here, they had to be inside. He returned to the front door and tried the handle. It was deadlocked. He looked closely at the lock. It was a heavy-duty double-cylinder deadbolt, and the lock was engaged. He called the daughter back, his voice trembling. The daughter immediately called the local police. Within 20 minutes, investigators arrived at the scene. Realizing the urgency, they decided to force entry. When the door finally gave way, the police officers stepped into the quiet house. The air was cool, conditioned. But there was a distinct metallic smell hanging in the air, the smell of fresh blood. They followed the scent down the pristine hallway, leading into the master bedroom. And there they found them. The schoolteacher couple was found brutally murdered, covered in blood inside their high-end, luxurious home. The scene was incredibly violent. It was clear that this wasn't a peaceful passing. It was a brutal, targeted assault. They had been attacked while they were in their sleeping quarters. But as the initial shock wore off, and the forensic team began to process the scene, the lead investigator realized they weren't just dealing with a horrific double homicide. They were dealing with an impossibility. Let's look at the physical layout of the crime scene. This is where the story goes from tragic to terrifying. To solve a murder, police look for three things: motive, means, and opportunity. And to establish opportunity, they must answer one basic question: how did the killer get in, and how did the killer get out? But when investigators examined the villa, they hit a concrete wall of pure confusion. The front door, the door the police had to break down, was locked from the inside. Let's clarify what locked from the inside means in this case. This wasn't a lock that could be engaged by pulling the door shut from the outside. This was a heavy, manual deadbolt that required a physical key or a thumb turn on the inside of the door. And the key to that deadbolt, it was found sitting on the entryway table inside the house, just 3 feet away from the door. Investigators immediately checked every single window in the villa. Every window was locked, unbroken. The glass was intact. The modern latching systems were fully engaged from the inside. They checked the back door, locked from the inside with the key still resting in the lock. They checked the garage door, the balcony doors, the skylights. Every single opening to this house was sealed, bolted, and completely secure from the inside. Think about the sheer absurdity of this. For a murder to take place, the killer had to physically enter the house, execute a brutal double homicide, and then exit the house. But if the killer exited the house, how did they lock the deadbolt from the inside on their way out? And if the killer didn't exit the house, where were they? The police conducted a massive room-by-room search of the entire property. They checked the attic, the basement, the closets, the crawl spaces, even the water tanks. The house was completely empty, except for the bodies of the schoolteachers. The lock was completely unbroken. There was no sign of lock picking, no scratches on the brass cylinder, and no evidence that a duplicate key had been used to manipulate the lock from the outside. There was absolutely no obvious physical entry point for the killer. Let's lay out the timeline. 9 o'clock, the daughter speaks to her parents. They are alive well and the house is locked up for the night. 10 to 3, the estimated window of the attack. 8 o'clock, the daughter tries to call, no answer. 10 morning, police break down the door and find the locked room crime scene. An 11-hour window. Somewhere in those dark hours, a killer bypassed a locked fortress, committed a horrific crime, relocked the fortress from the inside, and vanished into the night. How is this possible? When a crime seems physically impossible, we have to look beyond the obvious. Forensic psychologists and veteran detectives have proposed 3 major theories to explain the locked room mystery. Let's break them down, and as we do, think about which one makes the most sense to you. This is a classic trick, popularized in escape room design and old detective novels. The theory suggests that the killer actually exited through the front door. Before closing it, they looped a thin, strong string, like a fishing line, around the thumb turn of the deadbolt on the inside. They then stepped outside, closed the door, and pulled the ends of the string through the tiny gap under the door or through the keyhole itself. By pulling the string from the outside, they forced the deadbolt to turn, locking the door from the inside. Once the lock was engaged, they simply let go of one end of the string and pulled it through, leaving absolutely no trace of how the door was locked. It sounds plausible on paper, but investigators tested this. The deadbolt on the villa's door was a modern, heavy-duty security lock. The friction required to turn the metal bolt was too high for a simple string pull to execute, without snapping the line or leaving deep, visible scratches on the wooden door frame or the brass fixture. Furthermore, the gap under the modern, weather-sealed front door was virtually non-existent. There was a thick rubber draft excluder that would have trapped any string. So if not a trick, what else? This theory is far more terrifying. What if the killer didn't have to break in or out during the night? What if the killer was already inside when the daughter called at 9 o'clock? According to this theory, the killer could have been an acquaintance, a service worker, or an intruder who had secretly entered the home earlier in the day and hid in the attic or a guest room. After the couple went to sleep, the killer emerged, committed the crime, and then simply hid again. When the police arrived and broke down the door, they found the locked crime scene. But what if the killer didn't escape before the police arrived? What if they escaped during the chaos of the discovery? In the panic, with neighbors gathering, sirens blaring, and officers rushing through the house, could a clever killer have slipped out of a side door that police had unlocked after their entry? Or is there an even darker possibility? What if this wasn't an external killer at all? What if it was a tragic domestic double tragedy, a murder-suicide where one partner committed the crime and then took their own life? The police thoroughly investigated the murder-suicide angle, but the medical examiner's report quickly ruled it out. The nature of the wounds on both victims made it physically impossible for either of them to have inflicted them on themselves, and more importantly, the murder weapon was completely missing from the house. So if it wasn't a murder-suicide and if the killer wasn't hiding in the walls, we are left with the final, most chilling theory. While the doors and windows were locked, modern luxury villas have complex ventilation systems, central air conditioning ducts, and architectural design features like decorative chimneys or crawl spaces. Did the killer find a narrow, overlooked path through the ventilation system? Did they escape through an attic hatch, sliding out onto the roof, and then locking the hatch behind them using a spring-loaded latch? It seems like something out of an action movie. But in a 100 crore villa market where homes are built with unique, custom layouts, sometimes the blueprints hold secrets that even the architects didn't anticipate. Today, the luxury villa stands empty, a beautiful, grand monument to a tragic, impossible mystery. The schoolteachers who spent their entire lives helping others were robbed of their peaceful retirement, and their family is left not only with grief, but with a haunting, endless question. How did the killer escape? How did they lock the world out while they were still inside? Now it is your turn. Look at the evidence. The deadbolt locked from the inside. No broken windows, no murder weapon found. Which theory do you believe? Do you think the killer used a brilliant mechanical lock trick? Were they hiding in plain sight? Or did they escape through a path the police completely missed? Let us know your theories in the comments below. Let's debate this. If you want to support our channel and help us bring more deep dive true crime cases to light, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who loves a good mystery. Thank you for watching, and remember, double-check your locks tonight. Because you never know what's on the other side of the door.